Every so often I'd wake up in the middle of the night and want to get up, but the dog was asleep all over me. Could barely move. I would have to wrestle my way out from underneath that dog. Finally I would, and I'd make my way off quietly into the kitchen. Still not a move out of that dog. I would very quietly open up that refrigerator, look down, there was the dog. That refrigerator was her alarm clock. I never was big on alarms. I never needed them. I was always an early riser anyways. On the rare occasion I would have to get up exceptionally early, like I have been for the last month, so I would set the alarm. And I would always wake up about 20 minutes before it went off. And I would find myself just sitting there staring at it, waiting for it to go off. I said, I might as well just get up. So I would. Other people, a bomb could go off and they do not wake up. And then you have those people that continually reach over and hit the snooze over and over again. And the more that alarm goes off, the louder and more obnoxious that sound seems to get. But that's the job of an alarm, to wake you up. Have you ever noticed the people that are late every day are consistently late every day because they reach over and they hit that snooze alarm? People have a built-in alarm on their own, which I'm going to discuss. So let's get to it. One thing everybody has, gut instinct. Now this is something I've touched on in past videos, but I didn't have a whole lot of time in my last video and I kind of wanted to extend what I was talking about. Everybody knows, for the most part, if something's not right, or if they're in a situation that they really shouldn't be in, and the alarm always goes off. Some people are a little bit sharper than others. Some people know enough, okay, they don't hit the snooze, they just kind of walk away from it. Other people, it takes a few times for the alarm to go off before they open their eyes to it. 2006 was a time that the alarm went off for me that I should have been listening, but I chose to hit the snooze over and over again. And this is when I was studying to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. The red flags, and this goes back to even when the first witnesses came to my door, knocking on my door, that the red flags went up. I can't recall what it was they said about the organization, but it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I justified it. Now, this is a word that I had talked about in my last video. I justified, yeah, they're doing a good work, so I ignored it. These things went on for a few years until 2006 when I started studying. Now, my Bible instructor epitomized Watchtower. And this was a red flag that I should have been paying attention to. But I thought this is his actions, and I chose to ignore it. I was assured by others that, no, this is not the way Jehovah's Witnesses behave. Come to find out, yes, it was. And I'm talking about the type of control he tried to grab over me. His sneaking around my house, his butting into business that was not his. I justified what I was doing, studying at the time. This is the right thing to do. And I ignored those red flags. And this goes well into after my baptism, until I could no longer ignore what I was seeing. And it always dawned on me, is anybody else here seeing what I'm seeing? Now, this had gone on for a few years, and little by little, these red flags kept popping up, and these alarms kept going off, but I could no longer turn off that snooze. Things started mounting, and I could no longer justify my being there because of what I was seeing. And this goes to the old Watchtower literature, some of the insignias I was seeing in the older literature, the child abuse problem, their affiliation with the UN, their constant flip-flopping doctrines, and I could no longer justify turning off that, hitting that snooze button, and continuing on. So this is when I started fading. JW Broadcasting, I think, was a wake-up call for many. I was never a big fan of JW Broadcasting because I'm thinking, if we're going to the meetings 5 times a week, why do we have to listen to these numbnuts every month? so I didn't. But on the rare occasion I did watch it, I started noticing the rings on the governing body members and others on JW Broadcasting. And there was one month I had gotten a hold of a big screen and I'm watching really close, and I'm like, I finally realized what those rings were. And I'm wondering, is anybody else seeing this? Come to find out, yes, they were. My Bible instructor, who was so pro-watchtower, would not say anything negative right to the very end. He'd come over the house and we'd gone out in service, and he mentioned seeing the same things, which I was kind of surprised because he never said anything against watchtower. And he was all upset the fact that they were wearing Masonic rings. At the time, I was already fading, and I didn't think so highly of the organization anymore. But obviously, he still did. This was still about a year away from when I started dropping truth bombs, but there came a time when I wanted to know, is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? Come to find out, yes. Over a span of a few months, I started dropping little truth bombs to certain individuals in the congregation. My Bible instructor, former Bible instructor at this point, now I've had my difference with him over the years, but I figured I'd drop a few on him and see if he takes the bait, see exactly what he knows. Now I've mentioned this, so I'm really not going to go into it again. Well, he did to a degree, but didn't hesitate to turn me in. When it came down to it, I mentioned to him about the Masonic rings. I'm like, dude, you're the one who mentioned this to me a year ago. And he says to me, oh, it's okay, they're not wearing them anymore. I looked at him like, that was the stupidest thing I have ever heard. They're not wearing them anymore. I guess they're not Masons anymore. I didn't even bother at that point. I says, he is justifying what he's doing. He's justifying being in the organization because he thinks he's doing the right thing, even though it's a criminal organization. There were several others I dropped a little bit of hints to. There was one elder that I was spending a lot of time with. And we were talking one day, and I mentioned to him about the child abuse problem. I wanted to know if he knew about it. For the most part, when I mentioned the child abuse problem, you could see it in their faces, that they knew about it, but didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to hide their eyes from it. And this one elder I was talking to, I mentioned it to him. I says, isn't it possible that people in this organization could do something about it, to curtail it, to slow it down, to attempt to stop it? Because it's pretty bad. And I mentioned to him at the time that I knew how bad it was. And he said to me, well, we really have to wait on Jehovah. And I says, even though it's within our power to attempt to stop child abuse or to slow it down, whether it's in the organization or out of it, we can't just sit by and do nothing. And again, he says, well, we really have to wait on Jehovah. In other words, not do a frigging thing. After that, and I used to talk to this elder quite frequently, but after that, I kind of washed my hands of him, as well as my former Bible instructor, because they were seeing all this, and they were justifying being there. They were hiding their eyes to it. They knew what was going on, but continually hit that snooze alarm. And they had encouraged me to do the same thing. Ignore it. Don't listen to it. Well, the alarm was going off so loudly at this point, I could no longer ignore it. If they chose to ignore it, there wasn't a damn thing I could do to wake them up. Have you ever tried to wake up a sleeping person that just was not ready to get up? It's virtually impossible. I'm an extremely light sleeper, so a twig snapping will wake me up. But these people were in a dead sleep. But I always wondered, is this just a few select Jehovah's Witnesses, or is this every one of them? Now, I mentioned there comes a time when we all in the organization hit that crossroad and we realize something's not right. Whether it's the first year, a month, a year later, but somewhere during their course of a career as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they're seeing what's going on. Now, they can either do one of two things. They can either take it for what it is, look at it head on, and deal with it. This is why many of us have left the organization. Or you could take what others do and hit that snooze alarm, ignore it, and turn around and just keep on going. But yes, Every one of Jehovah's Witnesses is well aware of what is going on in the organization, and they choose to ignore it. They keep hitting that snooze alarm. But yeah, I am 100% sure that everyone in that organization hits that crossroad at one time or another, and they realize what this organization is. But in their own brains, they justify this is the right thing. The preaching work is the right thing, even though what they're preaching is false. They justify it, like I mentioned in my last video. This is why they have such deep hatred for those of us who have left. But they got to the point in 2015, I had been hitting that snooze alarm for so long that the alarm was getting louder and louder and louder, and I could no longer ignore it. I've been out going on 5 years now, and I do not regret leaving that organization, even though last December, 2 Jehovah's Witnesses stopped by to try to encourage me to come back. It wasn't happening. See, what their job was to feel me out to see where I am at. I suspect they do know about my channel, and they would love to see it taken down. But the one way to do that was to get me back at the congregation. They didn't have much to work on because I didn't say too much because I really didn't want to talk to them. They weren't 2 witnesses that I actually knew very well, so it's like, why would you stop by here if you didn't know me that well? Anyways, guys, that's something I just wanted to bring up, but I really didn't have a whole lot of time to mention it in my last video. I haven't been around a whole lot because I have been working a great deal of hours for the last month, but I will talk to you soon. You guys have a good day.